Hi, it's Steve Riley. Welcome to this episode of Great Practice, Great Life. And today, it's a great day for me because I get to hang out with one of my favorite practice advisors, Lori Pulvermacher. Lori, how you doing?
Great, Steve, always.
You are great always. It's one of the reasons I like to hang out with you. So today's conversation is a result of feedback from a prior conversation we had about onboarding.
Yeah,
And coaching and advising lawyers is a difficult thing. I've been doing it for almost 25 years now. I'm a recovering litigator, ran a estate planning practice, and a lot of lawyers would ask me, what's the shortcut? What's the tip? What's the technique? How to do this? I could literally give lawyers my hard drive and they would never implement things as I designed them or how I recommended or how I answered. They would say, look, I took your thingy, your checklist, whatever it was, and I fixed it for you. I fixed it for you. And here's it back to me. No charge, no charge, no charge. I fixed it for you. Here it is because I didn't think it worked well. Great. Did you try it? No. I see. So this thingy that you fixed for me, I did for a decade and refined it like 100 times and it works very, very well, but you never took it for a test drive, but you were kind enough to fix it for me. Yeah,
right.
I thought you needed the feedback. So one of the things I've always been overly reluctant to do, and we're going to promptly do it today, is give lawyers a shortcut because
Okay.
they will always try and fix the shortcut. So, Lori, you and I are going to take a treacherous path today. It's treacherous. I'm warning you because we actually had lawyers ask for a shortcut. After the onboarding conversation, had lawyers ask for, okay, give me a cheat sheet, give me a shortcut. And that's what today's about because I made a request of you and you've done a fantastic job. You hit my request out of the park like a home run. So why don't you talk about what the request was, what you did, and we'll walk people through a literal shortcut to how to onboard a great new team member.
Yeah, absolutely. In our previous episode, we talked about how essential it is that you have an onboarding plan, right? And to that, the response was, great. What does that look like? How do I do that? Do you have one? Right. So we put this together to provide that shortcut. And it's got those components that we feel should be in there. And I do believe that individuals will be able to take this and feel much more empowered to tailor it, to customize it, and to feel like they have a plan to bring on a new hire. 'Cause it's such an essential element to have for the success of that new hire.
So under key priorities, let's give an example here for the first 30 days. How do you know successful? So how do you know, and this, if you're okay, I'll read them
Yeah.
and then you give feedback why you thought this was important. So, if you're listening and you're trying to figure out, okay, what does first 30 days success look like? Now, when I was designing 90-day onboarding, I wanted a team member to be financially productive within 90 days.
Mhm.
So if I'm designing this for myself, I know in the first 30 days, I want them, and this is what you put, successfully manage 1 to 2 small tasks like document preparation, client correspondence, and define 2 to 3 measurable goals with supervisors. So talk more about that.
So the goals can be very specific around a measurement as far as number of things that they're doing or, a ratio, but usually within the first 30 days. And that's why I love a guide like this. It doesn't even have to be, I have to come up with some KPI, a key performance indicator or metric. It can just be, can we check the box against this? Okay. And again, the CRM system, the billing system, things that they're going to be using, having that confidence and the ability to demonstrate how they're going to use it. Okay, I think those two are really good examples because all too often we say, oh, here's my system. We use Lawmatics. Here's the Lawmatics tutorial library. Go and watch videos. And those videos are going to be helpful to understand, but it's not the exact application in your practice. So there's a disconnect there. So again, the shadowing of things and the ability for them to demonstrate might be some of those measurable goals, right? Again, 2 to 3, we don't have to overwhelm them, but we have to identify that we're moving in the right direction.
Let's talk about, if you're okay, let's switch to key performance indicators and
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit about that because this is a big one for me. And I think if I'm designing this, this is where I probably have to spend most of my thinking. Like I have to really think through if this person's a financial producer, either billable rate, fixed, price or contingency, how do they fit inside the business
Right.
revenue production system that we currently have? And how do I train them and coach them up to be successful if that's their role? So let's just focus on that role because it's going to be too hard to talk about how to become a new team leader. It's going to be too hard, I think, to talk about how to be a marketing assistant or a marketing director or intake specialist. So let's just focus on
Got
something that
it.
probably,
That's where I'm hoping this guide will be that
yeah,
helpful uh, item for them, Steve, because there are multiple different examples of KPIs that you can use for a variety of different roles in this. And some of them are more difficult to create those very specific metrics, if you would, but
look,
there's a lot of ideas in there.
so I want you to listen from the perspective like, well, I have an immigration practice or I have this practice or I have that practice. A- And I've said this and I continue to say it and it makes no sense, but it'll probably make sense when you explain it back to me in about a year, Lori. There's really three different revenue models inside law firms.
Right.
Hourly. I don't care if you're doing family law or commercial, it's hourly. And they basically operate the same. They do different stuff, but they operate the same. Contingency. I don't care if you're disability, social security, car accident, med mal. Stuff you do is different, but how you get paid is the same. So the financial measurements and the operational measurements are the same and fixed. I don't care if you're charging up front for immigration, criminal, DUI, elder law, estate planning,
Mhm.
same financial measurements, different type of factory, but you get paid the same way and you process different types of law, but cases are basically processed the same way. Now there's lawyers right now, one's, they're probably trying to stay on the they're probably holding on to the steering wheel going, "Oh, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. The whole world's turning upside down for me right now." It probably should because you're looking at it from an inside out paradigm. You're not looking at it from an outside in paradigm. So your KPIs will shift depending on your revenue model,
Yep.
depending on the person's role, depending on a lot of different factors
Mhm.
like what they're doing and their key player, the key playing
Right.
spot they have in your machine. But the strategy is what are you going to measure and why it's important? So I just want to set the stage for this because people are going to get all tied up. Well, I'm hourly rate. I don't understand. I'm hourly rate in family law. This is how it has to work.
Right.
And I'm like, heard it like not once, but like 10,000 times. So not just picking on the family law lawyers, but anyone who does billable hour.
Yeah.
So walk me through this. And then I've got I want to save a few minutes for rebuttal. And then we'll talk further. Go ahead, please.
All right. Well, again, the guide outlines a variety of different KPIs that you might be using that could be applicable to different roles. So, staying with that associate, I think, Steve, is what you said you wanted to kind of focus on with the billable hours. With again, there's certain metrics, but before we dive into some of the specifics on these KPIs, I just want to give some, you know, additional guidance. We can't manage what we're not measuring, right? And again, this is the clearest kind. If I can provide a dashboard for my team member and they know how they're being measured, they know what is important or what's driving success for their role and the practice, that creates a more autonomous, more self managed individual, which I think most of the leaders could like to have, right? So we don't want to get in the weeds on the supervision, and we can avoid that when we've created the dashboard, when we've created the indication of what we're going to be looking at and how we're measuring success. So, there's certain measurements that are more clearly defined. Billable hours.
I had a thought that I want your advice on because as we're wrestling with this, I would anticipate some of your longer team members, longer employed, longer participating on the team, might have some resentment towards a kinder, simpler, guided training process. How would you handle that?
This actually just came up a few weeks ago when I was chatting with a firm, and they had an existing team member that said, I never got onboarded that way. And so that resentment is real. And so again, it's not a crutch or an excuse for why we wouldn't do this, right? We can correct our wrongs. We can learn from things that didn't work and improve them for the next time, right? So I think you just have to be transparent and again, lean into trust, empathy, EQ with your team and say, yeah, that sucks. Sucks for you. What's worked really well is that you have thrived or that that you've been able to be an impactful individual in this firm despite the onboarding, despite my lack of preparation, despite my approach to this.